Hello and welcome to another Year 5 online English lesson. Today we're going to be doing a grammar lesson looking at a punctuation mark that we haven't used yet in Year 5 but will improve your writing. Please get yourself a piece of paper and a pen or pencil. Try these spellings as a warm-up. The first word is suggest. The second word is temperature. Okay, let's have a look at these and see if this helps you. You might have noticed that the word suggest has a short vowel and therefore a double consonant. Temperature, sometimes when you're hot, you lose your temper at you. Temperature. For today's writing, we're going to capitalise on some of the learning from Mrs. Brooks last week. She was looking at the states of water, sometimes as solid, liquid or gas. We're going to be thinking about that today in our writing. And we're going to learn how to use a semicolon. Can you see that the semicolon appears as what looks like a full stop floating above a comma? This is what it looks like in relation to the preceding letter. Can you see that the word semicolon sometimes appears with a hyphen and sometimes as a compound word, semicolon? They're both correct. This is more common. Let's have a look at why and when we use a semicolon. I've got a short film for you.
Anna and Jim are best buddies. Whatever they do it together. Being a good friend can be fun. Each day can be full of surprises. Anna's friendship with Jim is described in 2 sentences, but you can link them using these punctuation marks. A dash, semicolon, or colon. Let's look at using a dash. Look again at the sentences. Being a good friend can be fun. Each day can be full of surprises. A dash replaces the full stop between the sentences. The E becomes lowercase. The dash links the 2 sentences in quite an informal way. Now, let's use a semicolon. Returning to the sentences, a semicolon can join them. Being a good friend can be fun. Each day can be full of surprises. The 2 sentences are now linked. A semicolon is more formal than a dash.
Okay, let's go back to our lesson. We're not going to be learning about colons today. Remembering that a semicolon links 2 clauses and that the second clause sometimes and often explains more to the reader about the first clause. Here's a quiz. Which of these is the best use of a semicolon? 1. Penguins like to live in cold climates. They are adapted to lower temperatures. 2. Penguins like to live in cold climates. They are black and white. Well done if you said number 1. The second clause, about lower temperatures, explains a little bit more and is linked to the first clause. Try this one. Which of these is the best use of a semicolon? Water turns to ice if the temperature is cold enough. This is called freezing. 2. Water turns to ice if the temperature is cold enough. Swimming is great fun. Well done if you thought number 1 was the correct answer. This is called freezing. Tells us more about the temperature getting cold and water turning to ice. What's wrong here? Water turns to ice if the temperature is cold enough. This is called freezing. They both say that. Can you see? Here's our semicolon, and in number 1 there's a capital letter afterwards, whereas in number 2, it's a lowercase letter. This is correct. This is incorrect. Remember, you always use a lowercase letter after a semicolon. And remember that the second clause is linked to the first clause. Let me show you a writing task you can do. You'll need to pause the film. I'm going to give you 2 columns of clauses, a first clause and a second clause. Your job is to match the best second clause to the first clause. Let's have a look at these. Here they are. In a moment you can pause the film. Let's try this first one. Water is a liquid. That's our first clause. Add a semicolon when you write it. Would you like to follow this by the raindrops are in liquid form? Probably not. Would you like to follow it by gravity pulls river water from mountains to the oceans? Probably not. Remembering our first clause needs to be linked clearly to a second clause. Here, liquids flow. This could fit quite nicely after that first clause. You're going to choose which of these you would like to put after your initial clause. Pause the film now and you can copy those down in 2 columns. Welcome back. Shall we have a look at our answers? The first one we did together. Water is a liquid, liquids flow. Ice is frozen water. Solid particles do not move quickly, which is why ice is a solid. Rain falls from clouds. The raindrops are in liquid form when they fall. This one I've made a typing mistake in. The water cycle explains what happens to water on our planet, it should say. This is the never-ending movement of water between land, sea and the atmosphere. In houses, water comes out of taps. Each house is connected to the water mains. Can you see how the second clause is explaining a little bit more about the first clause? And finally, our last ones. Rivers flow towards the sea. Gravity pulls river water from the mountains to the ocean. We need to take care not to waste water. It is such a precious commodity. Plants and animals need water to live. Without water, life on Earth would end. Can you see how the punctuation semicolon looks like a full stop and a hanging comma, and there's a finger space before your next word? Well done. Why not try using some semicolons in some of your own writing? Remember, when you do so, your second clause is going to be linked to the first clause, and you're going to use a lowercase letter after a semicolon. I hope you enjoy using some semicolons in your writing this week, and I'll see you next week.